According to you, who's the most notorious serial killer ever? Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. I know, it sounds ludicrous, but a lot of the pieces fit. He was an antisocial genius who was teaching in the area at the time. He resembles the sketches and the physical characteristics of at least some of the witness accounts of the Zodiac, which conflict. He taught mathematics and was familiar with cryptography, so much so that his Unabomber diaries were written in code, albeit a much simpler substitution cipher, but they were much longer than the Zodiac letters, so he may have cut corners. When he left California for Montana, he traveled back at least a couple of times that we know of. During the Unabomber attacks, he would frequently travel to other places and place or mail his bombs from there to get the authorities off his scent. The Zodiac is believed to have done the same. There's the act of letter writing and of using an alias with the symbol. His handwriting isn't the stretch from the Zodiac's. People talk about Moe's and criminal psychology a lot when the comparisons are made, and yes, it's fair game. But I think there is substantial evidence of an antisocial psychopath who may have operated in two different ways at two different points in his life. This is like the only conspiracy theory that I've maintained over all these years, and there are definitely holes in the argument, but man, do I want it to be true. There's much more info out there if you want to go down the Google rabbit hole. Yep, I agree. He was also insanely smart, pun intended, and had the unique ability to charm others with his charisma and blend in with the ruling class of political elites in cities such as Chicago. There is a documentary on this guy on Peacock that released recently that is actually really good. I'd suggest it to anyone who wants to learn more about this monster. There's an urban legend passed along by the residents of the pathology department at Madison. My wife was one. They claim that the prison guard who brought Dahmer's body in for autopsy refused to uncuff himself from the corpse. During the entire autopsy. They simply refused to take the chance that he wasn't really dead. No idea if this is true, but I heard it at parties a couple of times. I used to work at a public library, and in those days to get a library card you needed proof of address, which could be in the form of postmarked mail. Well, this one guy brought in a letter, practically beaming as he held it in front of me. "Do you notice who the letter is from?" I said, "I don't really look at that. It's your privacy," and he points at the return address of a prison and gloats, "It's from Ricky Ramirez. You know, the serial killer. He's my good friend." He definitely, 100% wanted a horrified reaction from me. Instead, I ran a quick Google and said, "In that case, I can't accept this as proof of current address, since he's been dead for several years." Creep deflated like a balloon. There was a woman back when this was happening who called her mother to lock her doors at night because the night stalker was out there and killing anybody who had their doors open for him, and her mother refused because she didn't like living in fear or something. Her mother was killed by Ramirez shortly after. Ramirez is the main reason why I lock and barricade my doors at night. I know he's dead and all, but still scary. I'm always surprised at how long it to make a true investigation about the farm. I grew up in Coquitlam, and everyone knew about this place. My uncle partied there in the 70s, 90s with his biker buddies. I had a guy friend that would joke about dropping us girls off at Piggy's Palace. I was 13. This was 86/87, where girls get raped and tortured and killed. But we thought it was kind of an urban myth kind of thing until my aunt's PF said to never ever go there. I'm positive RCMP has been out there multiple times in the decades the brothers lived there. When I was a kid, we were afraid of Clifford Olson, different serial killer. Then as teens on it was Piggy's Palace. And they spent almost 10 years trying to catch him. In my opinion, he was the most brutal and most successful. He is not that popular worldwide because he was Ukrainian, and Ukraine is not such a strong brand as the US. So anything that doesn't come from the US doesn't get too much fame. Charles Manson? Give me a break. That guy was nobody, but almost everyone knows about him in Ukraine. Toy box killer. There is an audio clip on YouTube of something he made that he would play for all his victims. 60 suspected murders, 3 confirmed tortured and survived. The guy kidnapped women, raped them, let his friends rape him, watched as his dog raped him and many other fucked up things. Man was definitely one of the worst. Glad he bit the dust. Just wish more of his time was spent getting beat in gaol. Oh man, I read those transcripts years ago on Tumblr. They still haunt me. Him and his girlfriend were doing the kidnapping and most of the torturing. They would have his friends come over to join. He would force his dog on top of the victims too. Glad he's dead. Unfortunately, his girlfriend was released from prison. I reckon we know less than half of what he did. Fred and Rose's incestuous childhood and then their own children. And in Fred's case even bestiality. So disturbing. I'm watching Trevor McDonald's Fred and Rose West reopen. And it's clear he committed more murders than he was ever done for. I did a huge project on him several years ago and I still have trouble sleeping when I randomly remember quotes from the letter sent to the girl's family detailing how he killed her, cooked her and how she tasted. The whole letter haven't even been disclosed yet because the court deemed it so morbid and disturbing that the general public shouldn't be able to read it. Now I gag anytime someone mentions cannibalism even as a joke or in passing conversation and I often have to take a moment and drink some water. Had to scroll really far to find this, but this is the answer for me. Were his murders as brutal or as horrifying as many of the others? Number. But the sheer volume and the unsuspecting, mundane way he went about them is terrifying. Nobody knew or suspected anything for years. He wasn't the monster hiding in the bushes waiting to torture. He was a friendly face that everybody around him trusted, and that's disturbing in a different way. Ted Bundy. Handsome, intelligent and, superficially, charming. He wasn't some weird guy that you would be naturally wary of, but a cold calculated confidence trickster who presented well. Outwardly, he didn't fit the stereotype at all, which made him all the more potent and dangerous to women. I hate Ted Bundy, not just because he's a remorseless serial killer, but because he has this reputation as being some kind of criminal genius when he isn't. Knowing what I know about his operations, I can say the man made a ton of dumb mistakes, and he was only smart enough to stay slightly ahead of a frankly incompetent police force chasing him. I mean, they knew his car right from the start, but they did nothing about it. He escaped from custody by exploiting incompetent courthouse guards, but hung around in the same area until he was caught again. They found his murder implements in his car. What genius criminal would keep that shit around like that? The guy's intellect is only impressive when compared to the ineptitude of those trying to catch him, but it doesn't stack well when compared to everyone else. Plus he's thoroughly average looking, at best. I have to agree because he is the one name everyone recognizes, no matter how clueless they are about true crime. He's also one of the few that everyone remembers as a real murderer and not a character from some book or movie, like Jack the Ripper or the Zodiac Killer. I heard about people picketing the Planned Parenthood clinic up the road, because they did abortions. They should have been picketing this clinic. Among other things, he had a clean section and a dirty section of the clinic, and he would take white women to the clean section because he felt they were more likely to complain, and he's a black man himself. As a Finnish person I feel that Michael Pendola, Jack Lindholm, the main reason why I feel he is notorious is because he is the only Finn that fits FBI's description of a serial killer, yet he is repeatedly released from the prison, even with the risk of a new death, and has been the subject of much criticism from people for the overlax functioning of the Finnish legal system. Some of his crimes include: 1981, at 15 he kidnapped a girl. 1985, killed his own mother. 1986, he imprisoned two 12-year-old girls in his house, proceeded to kill the other girl and rape the girl. 1993, whilst on parole he killed a woman. May 2009. After being released from prison again he attempted to choke a woman. August 2009. After a few months he tried to choke another woman. September 2009. And after a month he attempted to choke a third woman. 2018. He killed a woman. Probably one of the most intelligent. He'd plant kill bags in locations in continental USA months or even years ahead of time. He'd fly in nowhere close to where it was, go to the location he stashed his kill bag, murder someone, then go back to Alaska. He was caught because he abandoned this method and killed someone local to his home. The murders occurred all over the US, so there was no easy connection. Somehow over 2,000 comments and no one mentions the toolbox killers. 2 guys rather than one. Fascinatingly enough, go on a spree of rape and abduction and get away with it for a while before being caught. I used to live where they would abduct girls and worked where they would dispose of the bodies, and it was not close lol. So that confused everyone, I guess. Still, brutal murders, sad drilly. H.H. Holmes and his murder castle was pretty twisted. But there's also Ed Gein, Ted Bundy, Dahmer, Samuel Little, who confessed late in life to killing 93 people across 19 states. Police are still searching for his victims. He died at 80 around December 2020. In Canada, definitely Robert Pickton. Dozens of not hundreds of women murdered on his family's pig farm. Some fed to the pigs, some butchered and given away, which was claimed to be pig meat to unsuspecting people. Escaped detection for so many years. And the guy was mentally challenged with a really low IQ. Baffles the mind how badly the cops messed up with him. While everyone is familiar with the U.S. serial killers since they're treated like pop stars, one of the lesser-known killers through history is Vasily Blahyikin. He was one of the heads of the KGB for Stalin and is credited with the most single-handed kills in human history. Hitler and Mao Zedong may have had the most people killed, but Blahyikin is a man that literally pulled the trigger himself. He used the German Walther instead of the Russian TT-30 because the Walther didn't hurt his wrist and hand as much when executing hundreds of people. When the Soviets called Poles, he set the notorious record of personally executing 7,000 Poles in 28 days. His total kill records are argued between 10,000–20,000 people. Literally anyone I meet knows of this guy. Alan Lager, if you're Canadian, you'll know who he is. Committed his first murder in 1986, got arrested, went to prison and escaped custody in 1989. He was on the loose for 7 months I believe and killed 4 or 5 people before he was caught again. He was up for parole last year but was denied, thank God. Todd Kohlhepp is also well known in the US I believe. He killed 7 people and kidnapped a woman for 2 months before he got arrested. I searched him up and he got 7 life sentences in prison without parole. Juana Barraza Sampirio, say was known in Mexico as La Motovijda, so the old lady's killer. She broke all of the stereotypes while profiling a serial killer. She was violent, killed with her own hands, stolen, was able to avoid the law after 42 murders at least. As I've seen, it is very rare to see a female serial killer involved in so much violence and personal acts. She didn't use guns or any tools, she used her bare hands. On his fishes returned to NY, he stole 2 boys 1/7/11, took them to his home, stripped them naked, tied them in a closet, then burned everything they had on. Several times every day and night he spanked them, tortured them, to make their meat good and tender. First he killed the 11-year-old boy, because he had the fattest ass and of course the most meat on it. Every part of his body was cooked and eaten except head, buns and guts. He was roasted in the oven, all of his ass, boiled, broiled, fried, stewed. The little boy was next, went the same way. Grace sat in my lap and kissed me. I made up my mind to eat her, on the pretense of taking her to a party. You said yes she could go. I took her to an empty house in Westchester I had already picked out. When we got there, I told her to remain outside. She picked wildflowers. I went upstairs and stripped all my clothes off. I knew if I did not I would get her blood on them. When all was ready I went to the window and called her. Then I hid in a closet until she was in the room. When she saw me all naked she began to cry and tried to run downstairs. I grabbed her and she said she would tell her mama. First I stripped her naked. How she did kick, bite and scratch. I choked her to death and cut her in small pieces so I could take my meat to my rooms, cook and eat it. How sweet and tender her little ass was roasted in the oven. It took me 9 days to eat her entire body. I did not fuck her, though I could have had I wished. She died a virgin. A couple of months ago I read the story of Maria Swainberg from Leiden in the Netherlands. She is suspected of killing 90 people by poisoning them. She killed them for insurance money. But after a while it seemed the financial motive was pretty much gone. She even killed people who went to the funeral of the person she killed. https://n.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/Maria_Swainberg. Add Dean Corll to the list. I recently read a book about him, The Man with the Candy. Long out of print but you can get it online. And he wasn't caught sooner because the police didn't take the boy's parents seriously. Oh, he probably ran away. These parents knew their sons. And no, they didn't run away. One of the victims was a 20-something man with a pregnant wife, who was renovating a building Corll owned. Everyone said he probably couldn't handle his upcoming responsibilities and left, but she said otherwise, and she was right. Kathleen Folbig, the child killer. Her father killed her mother. She had a lot of problems, killed all 4 of her children and wrote in diaries about how hard her life was and how easy it was when the kid went away and her husband paid attention to her again and not her kids. Munchausen's is not recognized in Australia, so they didn't get her on that, but now 100+ scientists claim that she's the first person to have a defect in her genes that makes the kids just die. Total bullshit. They just can't believe that a mother would kill over and over again. Glad the legal system knows she's full of shit. Fuck you, Kathleen, and the people who support her fucking awful crimes. Garth Brooks by a mile. He has killed hundreds and left their families without closure, due to the fact that the bodies have never been recovered. My personal theory is that he has a storeroom of sorts under his lair which he pretends is a recording studio. It's despicable that his so-called fans, more like cult, will deny these allegations and continue to pay for tickets to his shows, only funding his murderous rampages across the country. Alexander Pichushkin, aka the chessboard killer, named so because the cops found a chess set after his arrest with dates on all but 2 squares that were connected to the murders he committed. Russian serial killer with 48 confirmed kills, but rumored to have killed as many as 60. Fun fact, he's from the same Zuzino district in Moscow where Maria Petrova, a female spree killer, lived and killed her victims. I have been fighting him relentlessly for the past 25 years. Whenever I go to bed, and I relax to let the night embrace me, I hear him lurking around. Then a spike of stress invades my spine. The noise he makes becomes closer and closer. At first I try to ignore it, but it becomes impossible to not focus on it. Then the rage takes the better of me, and the battle begins. Mosquitoes. 100%. Jack the Ripper. H.H. Holmes. It's the way he even manipulated people to even do some of his dirty work and even selling the skeletal remains to universities at the time. He used his tactics to build his hotel for damn near free and cheated so many lenders out of money and was still even able to get more. The man was a maniac and built a furnace to get hot enough to destroy human remains, and no one even thought to question such. This was also during the World Fair in Chicago, and he built that hotel to bring in people from the World's Fair and to be able to select his victims. Probably Albert Fish. Or at least he ought to be. That bastard was easily one of the most depraved human beings to ever blight the surface of the earth. He was a serial child predator who, by his own admission, molested hundreds and killed at least dozens, and ate at least one of his victims, one Grace Budd, who was 10 years old when he strangled her to death and cooked her remains. Honestly, I wish they could have executed him twice, just to really send the message home. Problem is, discussing Albert Fish is difficult to keep serious just because the guy was so goddamn aic in the head. The sheer number of absurd depravities he took part in, coprophagia, inserting needles into his pelvis, extreme sadism and masochism, just makes him seem almost comical, until you remember just how many lives were ruined or snuffed out in their youth, and realize the sheer depths of his evil. Also, I first heard of him on the Time Suck podcast, and Dan Cummins' impression of him is seared into my brain. Showbiz.